Uma getting us a report from the health sector, which by the way found a prominent mention in the economic survey. So how important is that sector now in a post-COVID scenario, now that we have finally understood the importance of how healthcare needs to be developed as a functioning model of or a part of the budget? Maybe increase its proportion or share, in terms of percentage of the GDP. Mr. Singh is also with us. Mr. Singh, what according to you will be those key areas where the government needs to focus in this particular budget?
Let me start by saying that I think you summarized the budget very well. We've saved lives. It's now time for livelihood. And there I would say that, the government has done exceedingly well in being able to face this pandemic because, we need to congratulate the government for the effort it's made. Needs to get more recognition for that. What we really need is right now a growth-oriented budget. We have no choice. This budget is a landmark budget for India. It's not another statement of financial accounts really. We had a landmark budget in 1991 when we opened up the economy, and to me, 30 years later, this is another landmark budget. We need to combine, the revival with growth, and it has to be a growth-oriented budget. There is absolutely no choice. It's not that we have an alternate or a choice, because you mentioned earlier that the economy had already gone into a little bit of a slowdown pre-pandemic, and thereafter it's really only gone downhill. So we have no choice. We have to go in for a revival budget, and I would really say that the first thing, of course, is that we need to continue our investment in the social sector, because saving of lives is not yet over. There's still a lot to be done. We need to more than double our healthcare budget. We need to have more investments and more incentives into the social sector schemes, the direct benefit transfers, which have really made people survive. We need to get in more investment into agriculture. So these are the things that we need to do in any case to ensure that the lives are continuing to be saved. So that's the first part of this. But again, the second part really is that we need to now loosen our purse strings. The government has to, I know resources are scarce, but the government has to look at infrastructure. The government has to look at putting in more money into supporting housing, into supporting mining, the hotel industry, creating jobs. Because at the end of the day, industry is not going to revive unless there is a demand and money in the hands of the people. So there is this bent up demand situation that we've got, but we need to get money to the hands of the people. We will need to also sort of find resources, and the government has a number of ways to look at resources. The heartening news, of course, is that the GST collection in January has been the highest ever till now, 1.2 lakh crores. So the government has to continue being efficient in its tax collection, but at the same time not really levy too many new taxes in this budget, because you need to get money in the hands of the investor themselves. You need to probably look at some incentives around consumption itself, not just revenue, but if the government could look at incentives around consumption so that people get motivated to spend more money, and that in turn is going to help revive the economy. The government would really need to also look at ensuring that there is more disinvestment this year.
These points that you have mentioned, and then we can maybe revisit some of the points that you are about to mention a little later. Sanjay Agarwal is also with us, President of the PhD Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Agarwal, thank you very much and good morning. A lot of expectations from this budget. Many were calling the previous budget, that is the budget last year, as the make or break budget. And then, of course, the pandemic happened. It seemed that we should have prepared for the worst, because obviously nobody thought that something like this has to be done. But Mr. Agarwal, according to you, what has been our growth trajectory like post the lockdown being lifted, and what, according to you, should be the key areas? For instance, and I say this again, the stress that has been there or given in the economic survey to the healthcare sector, according to me or according to NDTV, as we've been doing a series of stories, is a very important one, because you can make sure that you contribute to the revival of the economy by simply making sure that people in a country are healthy. Something as basic as that.
Absolutely, Sanjay. Absolutely, Sanjay. So what I would like to say is that we talk about the economy having recovered. Actually, we are yet to reach back to the level of March 20. It's going to take time, and it will probably happen somewhere towards the end of FY 22. So, but yes, we are seeing strong rebound in Q2 and better rebound in Q3. And of course, the current quarter probably we will see a good positive growth. That having been said, this pandemic has been of unforeseen proportions. So whatever it might have been, no budget could have prepared for that. But coming to the stress on health sector, let me say that our PhD chamber has been taking the lead and rather been stressing on the need for doubling the health infrastructure expenditure to 3% of GDP for the last nearly 1 year, and especially immediately whenever we have been asked to put up our recommendations for the budget. We are very happy that the economic survey has recognized the same. In addition, what I would like to mention about health infrastructure is, as you very rightly said, of course, that A, it will make the nation healthier, B, it is investing into the basic infrastructure, but C, let me also add that the multiplier of investment into infrastructure is now being estimated as something like 2.5 in these recessionary times, in these negative growth times, which is not always the case when there is a positive growth. On top of that, the PhD chamber has very strongly suggested to the government that we must double the number of doctors, nurses and paramedics in our country. We have to aggressively establish medical colleges to train all these personnel and correct the unnecessary red tape in the procedures that are there involved in setting up these medical colleges. I am told that 100-seat medical college is costing upwards of rupees 400 crores, which is not required when Indian students go to countries like Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan or China even to get their medical education at very low cost. So it does not make sense for us to be suffering with a shortage of medical manpower. In addition, we must have seamless delivery of funds both for CAPEX and OPEX across the health sector. We cannot have this unfortunate situation to continue where in the capital of the nation, in Delhi, government hospitals are not, doctors are not paid their salaries for months. So there has to be a seamless delivery of funds throughout the system, starting from primary healthcare centers, block and district level centers, and up to the
block. Raising, as far as the healthcare sector is concerned, if you take care of these basics, then a lot can in fact change for the economy. In fact, what we can do is, if you gentlemen allow me, we have prepared presentations sector-wise right here on NDTV. And since we are talking much about the health sector, let's play out this presentation prepared by my colleague Uma Sudhir on what the healthcare sector expects of this budget, or ideally should be given from this budget.
India's ambitious COVID vaccine program is expected to not just keep the pandemic at bay, it is also expected to revive the economy. But the cost of vaccinating even half the population at 400 rupees per person adds up to 27,000 crore rupees. That is 40% of what India spent on its health allocation in the budget last year. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has to find the money for vaccines and much more in the Union health budget, with the economic survey pointing out that a health crisis can turn into an economic and social crisis too.
Last year we had about 1.3% approximately allotted to healthcare. Now because of this COVID effect, I am sure whole of the population and even political circles have understood that we have to have more resources for the healthcare.
At least minimum 8 to 10% we should build. What we have 1.3% today should increase 8 to 10%.
Experts point out that health sector allocation should be seen as investment rather than expenditure. And government funds should prioritize primary and secondary health care, sanitation and improvement of social sector, since that would take care of 70% of healthcare requirements of the population.
If the budget is spent most on prevention of the diseases, like, primary healthcare centers, this and that, reach will be much more than the tertiary care. And tertiary care mostly now also 70-80% is taken care by the private sector.
And this is the private health sector prescription to boost investment.
So if they can give a 5 years holiday for all the private healthcare in the beginning, and second important thing, the taxes, especially in the 5-6 years, either it may be income tax, whether it may be GST, whether it may be an import tax, more and more private healthcare people will come into the picture.
The economic survey points out that India has the highest out-of-pocket expenditure on healthcare. So innovation is needed to push for universal insurance, so healthcare expenditure won't become an unexpected emergency.
Let the private people, all the public should pay 25% so that they will know what is the significance of this health. So once the insurance comes, the profitability and the generation of the private healthcare will also improve.
An area of opportunity for India is telemedicine and revival of medical tourism that was growing at 18% and took a hit last year. In Hyderabad with camera person Nagaraju, Uma Sudhir, NDTV. NDTV.
All right, so we're going to head into a short break as of this moment. When we come back, we are going to go across to other guests also who are now joining us. We have Mr. Bhavin Shah. Bhavin Shah is a partner, tax and regulatory, PwC India. Shama Mohammed, spokesperson of the Congress party. Remember, there will be a fair amount of politics at play as well. PKD Nambia, political analyst who supports the Bharatiya Janata Party. All our guests now with us. We are building up to the union budget, which many feel is a make or break budget, extremely significant. We'll be back in just a short moment, and we'll get you reports from the other sectors as well in just a short moment. Stay with us.
आइसक्रीम खाएगी?
आइसक्रीम? ये है डबल आनंद। पहला आनंद पॉलिसी टर्म के अंत पर मैच्योरिटी क्लेम का पूरा भुगतान, और दूसरा आपके अपनों के लिए लाइफ कवर की पूरी रकम बिना किसी प्रीमियम के। LIC न्यू जीवन आनंद, आनंद ही आनंद।
Gorgeous house, भाई। Washroom? Beautiful!
Sense tap, touch free.
Thanda, thanda. Not thanda.
Thermostatic shower. नहीं सुनाई दिया ना? Silent flushing technology. Hindware Italian collection.
So thoughtful.
Yeah.
But it's so beautiful.
Actually, thoughtful is beautiful. Hindware Italian collection.
हर बार तुम flowers लेके आते हो, इस बार मैं ले आई.
Introducing the Bloom series of fans from Usha. Lily, आपके घर में भर दे जान. Usha Bloom series fans, जिंदगी खिल उठे.
I recommend MRF ZLX for sheer comfort and long life. MRF ZLX. You can bet on it.
I love Indian food and I love washing dishes.
Presenting Faber dishwashers with 3D oil clean technology.
Love cooking, love the kitchen.
पार्टी का सामान?
You rock it big. Oh.
Presenting the big, bold and beautiful, all new Nissan Magnite. Ignite your charisma.
ऑफिस के कपड़े.
इम्पोर्टेंट प्रेजेंटेशन.
इम्पोर्टेंट स्कूल प्रेजेंटेशन है.
इन्हें भरोसा है आप पे, और आपका भरोसा मैक्स लाइफ इंश्योरेंस की 99.22% क्लेम्स पेड रेशियो पे. इंडिया के भरोसे का नंबर, मैक्स लाइफ इंश्योरेंस.
For diabetes control, I recommend Active Fiber Natural Sugar Control. It's clinically proven. You get better sugar control in 4 weeks.
बक्कड़ बक्कड़ बम्बे बो 80-90 पूरे 100. हाथ में लग गया गंदा, बीमार पड़ गई चंदा.
खाने से पहले धो लो हाथ, भले लगे है मामूली बात. खुद को नहीं, हाथ पड़ोस को भी लगोगा, तभी होगी गलती माफ. सच करेगा इंडिया.
पे से भी कम मेंटेनेंस कॉस्ट। ये है होंडा अमेज का बिग अश्योरेंस।
हर बार तुम फ्लावर्स लेके आते हो, इस बार मैं ले आई।
इंट्रोड्यूसिंग द ब्लूम सीरीज ऑफ फैंस फ्रॉम उषा। डैफोडिल आपके घर में भर दे जान। उषा ब्लूम सीरीज फैंस, जिंदगी खिल उठे।
Welcome back. You're watching our non-stop broadcast right here. We're building up to the union budget. It will be presented at 11 a.m. Remember, this time around, a lot of firsts. There will be no Bahi Khata. The bag was done away with a long time ago. It will be a e-budget, a digital budget. It will be available on the app for everyone to see. But apart from these changes, will there be significant changes inside the budget, the written text? And how exactly will India react, or the economy react, to the vision document of the government? Let me now quickly go back to Professor Apurva. Now, Professor Apurva, in the economic survey, which gives a sort of a broad outlay of how things are going to be, it suggests a possible double-digit growth, right? Now, according to you, how exactly can that be achieved? And the biggest concern that the government has is, where is the money to spend on these welfare schemes, on these projects to kickstart the economy? See, the initial thrust has to come from somewhere, and obviously the expectation will be of the government to provide this thrust. Where is the money?
You hit the nail, I guess, because as you see, the IMF forecast, even the economic survey forecast is roughly 11% for next year, but that's going to be there because we are contracting this year. So basically it's a low base effect. What people say, you are a smaller economy now, so next year it is easier for you to grow. If you look at FY 2022-23 forecast by IMF, they are roughly around 6.5%. So it is going to be, so 11, let's not get overly joyed and excited by this 11% number. This is not a long lasting number. It's just a low base effect. So that's one. So if we want to grow, and perhaps as Ruchir Sharma has said on many occasions, it's not going to be easy to sustain even 6% in the long run, because world is not going to grow that fast. For example, some of the countries like China grew fast in early 2000s because they could export at a very high rate. Yeah. That's not going to be same for India. And so from that perspective, I think even to maintain 6% is going to be tough. So you hit the nail, I think, and hence we need to prioritize where we spend our money. Any economy has grown for long time and for persistent time only when they have spent their money on capital expenditure. I think at the stage where we are, especially where we are in India, I don't. Would you like
to elaborate for our viewers what exactly does this mean? For a layman, when you say capital expenditure should be the capital or the key spend, what does that mean?
By capital expenditure, I mean you spend on infrastructure, you spend on giving good incentives to companies, small companies to grow big. We give subsidies and we give promotions to small companies to remain small. We need to give them incentives to grow big. We need to spend on infrastructure, railways, transport, the clogging at the ports. We need to clear that. Huge infrastructure spends. Healthcare will be one of the items that will be looked at. But the clear priority is, if you spread the current pie of our economy, you give money in hands of people, they are going to spend it for next 2 months, 3 months, demand boost, and you will see some increase in GDP for next a quarter or so. But if you want the effect to be long lasting, you want to invest in projects like infrastructure which create a multiplier effect in the economy. That's what research has shown. So I would bet my money to go in capital expenditure and infrastructure rather than just in demand boosting measures. So that is what.
So you're saying that don't give out doles. From what I gather, from what you're saying, don't give out doles to expect that it will kickstart the economy, but spend the money in areas that will then help regenerating money.
Yes, because just to elaborate, unless and until jobs are secure, and which is going to be done only when industry is healthy, you are not people are not going to spend their money.
I hope you realize, Professor Apurva, this is an extremely contentious political issue that you have touched upon. But Bhavin Shah is also with us, and so is Mr. Nambiar. Mr. Shah, would you like to weigh in? First of all, your expectations, and then this point on how exactly should we spend this scarce resource called money?
Yeah, hi, thanks, Ankit. So, absolutely with the professor. Besides the healthcare spends that we spoke about in the earlier part of the session, the few industries which will have multiplier effect, like infrastructure, maybe real estate or auto. That would be very critical to really, regenerate the demand and the economy. Just take example of Mumbai. Only in December 2020, there were about 20,000 registrations as compared to 2019, which was like half of what we got in December of 2020. The reason for that was just that stamp duty in Mumbai was reduced from 6% to 2% on the real estate. Now, if we can do something like that pan-India, which is, like GST reduction or something like that, which will boost the demand, that would have a significant impact and a multiplier effect on the entire industry. So that's on these few sectors. From money generation standpoint, capital market at its peak, and this is the time government has spoken about disinvestment for a long time. This is the time or the year where they will have to really take or cash out their investments in some blue chip companies. So I expect a lot of disinvestment to actually see light of the day in this year.
Okay. All right. Let me head into a short break as of this moment. When we come back, we'll start the political discussion and also focus on other key sectors like education. And one important concern over here, we're seeing growth in certain sectors, but as many people like to put a letter to this type of growth, some people call it V, some call it K. There are some who are calling for the rich, it's like a J, right? They're going up. And for the poor, it's like an L. They've come down and they're flat. Which letter is on the mind of Professor Apurva and the rest? We'll discuss all that and much more after a short break. Our non-stop broadcast on the Union Budget 2021 continues right here. Stay with us.
मोदी सरकार में माननीय वित्त मंत्री जी का ये बजट जनता की उम्मीदों के अनुसार होगा। सबका साथ, सबका विकास, सबका विश्वास मूल मंत्र के साथ चलने वाली मोदी सरकार ने पिछली महामारी के समय भी आत्मनिर्भर पैकेज देकर भारत को एक नई दिशा दी, महामारी से बचाया भी और भारतीय अर्थव्यवस्था को तेजी के साथ पटरी पर भी लाए और मजबूती प्रदान कर रहे हैं। पूर्ण विश्वास है इस बजट में भी हम जनता की उम्मीदों पर खरा उतरेंगे और आत्मनिर्भर भारत बनाने के लिए और विश्व की अग्रणी इकोनॉमीज में एक भारत लगातार आगे बढ़े, इस दिशा में हमारा लगातार प्रयास रहेगा।
Co-powered by LIC, हर पल आपके साथ. Apollo Aptera, bad roads go to good places. And Hindware Italian Collection, thoughtful is beautiful. In association with Wonder Cement, एक perfect शुरुआत.
Have you seen what I've seen? Ever seen a road without a way? Black and white rainbow, or a flying monkey, or had a cup of tea with a Yeti. Don't trust me. I don't care. Thanks for the tea, Yeti. Apollo Aptera. Bad roads go to good places.
पहली महिला है जो घर से निकल के हमने बिजनेस अपना डाला।
एक पहचान मिली, कामयाबी मिली, तो मतलब हर खुशी मिली।
NDTV Usha Kushalta Ke Kadam Season 5 Saturday 10:30 p.m. and Sunday 8:30 a.m. only on NDTV 24/7.
कुशलता के कदम brought to you by Usha.
पार्टी का सामान?
You rock it big. Oh.
Presenting the big, bold and beautiful, all new Nissan Magnite. Ignite your charisma.
इंडिया के हर घर खुशियां पहुंचाने में
हमसे जुड़े लाखों सेलर्स, कारीगर और डिलीवरी पार्टनर्स सब साथ हैं। Amazon, इंडिया से बनी इंडिया की अपनी दुकान।
By the way, how is dance club?
We learn Bollywood dance.
Watch this.
Hello, MG.
How can I help you?
Chalao FM.
Playing favorite radio station.
The new evolved MG Hector, now with English voice commands. MG Hector, it's a human thing.
हर बार तुम फ्लावर्स लेके आते हो, इस बार मैं ले आई।
Introducing the Bloom series of fans from Usha. Primrose, आपके घर में भर दे जान। Usha Bloom series fans, जिंदगी खिल उठे।
Building up to the Union Budget 2021, we just heard the presentation, in fact the comment that has been made by the Minister of State for Finance, Anurag Thakur, just a short while ago. He spoke about the expectation, he spoke about how this budget can in fact take us or accelerate us to the next level of the economy. But again, you know, some key questions and key concerns and key focus areas remain. Those are pictures that are continuously coming in of senior officials of the Ministry of Finance leaving their residence, some of them waiting at the Ministry of Finance to prepare for the Finance Minister as well as the Minister of State for Finance to reach. After that, they will go in, come out. I don't know what is going to happen this time around, because usually we used to expect around this time both the ministers as well as the battery of the secretaries come out, show the suitcase, and then head to Parliament. But this time around, no suitcase, no bahi khata, so little wonder what is going to happen. But whatever, I think it will be significant to know what will be the writing inside that e-document called Union Budget 2021. We also have, let me quickly introduce all our other guests. PKD Nambiar, he's a political analyst, supports the BJP, is also with us. Mr. Nambiar, we'll have Shama Mohammed with us in just a short moment from now. But in just a short moment she'll be with us. But Mr. Nambiar, obviously politically, the criticism is that, first of all, you imposed a lockdown as stringent as this, thus creating a situation for the economy as dire as this. And now we are looking for a recovery, to be able to grow at $5 trillion, to become a $5 trillion economy. Many economists say that would mean that you should have an ambitious growth target of double digit, high double digit, 20% growth year on year. Now, how is that possible?
So, well, Sanket, the first part is that my expectation from this budget is it should be a transformational budget, and the transformational budget which will be a comprehensive plan for the Indian economy, which will be looking at whether it is creating demand, both the supply chain and the demand at the same time, and consumption, the boost, and etc., etc., etc. And the most important is the job creation. I'm a businessman, and I know that the importance of a budget and how much it impacts on businesses and the common people. So it is like anybody else, a common citizen of this country. I'm also looking at this budget as a transformational one. Now, since you asked the political aspect of it, I think the worldwide it is highly appreciated the fact that the early lockdown has not only helped us to save the lives of the people and the livelihoods of the people, and that is one of the reason we may be one of the very few countries which has been able to really, I would say we may be a right example to the world that how a pandemic like a situation like this can be handled. I really give the complete credit to the Prime Minister Modi for doing that. And if you really look at it, it's such a large country. You have not been able to report a single case wherein the people were dying because of they were not able to get the food. Our digital economy, what the Prime Minister has given it to this country, has really helped us, whether it is in terms of transferring the money to the people, whether it is in reaching the food grains to each and every household. So I would say that broadly...
You're saying, Mr. Nambiar, but again the letters come into play. It begins with the government propagating the letter V, which means that the growth is V-shaped. It's gone down dramatically, it will rise dramatically. Then you've got the opposition and many other concerned economists who say that this is K-shaped growth, which means the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. Professor Apurva, now this is a great matter of concern, and what lends credence to this K-shaped recovery model is when you see figures coming in of top businessmen in this country and their income increasing manifold, whereas many people losing jobs, and the unemployment figures are alarming. So in a situation like this where the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer, do you think that this will be or can be seen as an ideal growth? And do you think that this has to be fixed by the economy? So you don't have to answer a political question, don't worry.
No.
But in your wisdom.
No, so I think it's a very important question, and this is not only in India but across the globe that you see inequality growing, and typically it grows more during recessions. And the reason is that stock markets are rising exactly after the recessionary shock. And so that means that most of the rich people have their wealth in stock markets. They become rich, and due to unemployment, the poor is getting poor, and that happens exactly after a recession or pandemic like COVID.
Across the world.
Across the world. This is true even after 2008 financial crisis. This happened in US. It's happening even now. So this is not only true in India. The point is that unless and until you the jobs are going to come back only when industry is in a healthy shape. And so, in my opinion, I think one should look at wealth not only using the stock markets, but which right now what people are doing, but I think what profits the companies are making is more important a barometer rather than this inequality. And CA yesterday in his economic survey presentation made it quite clear that in our case we should focus on growth and pulling people out of poverty rather than trying to measure the gap between the rich and the poor. It's
no, but then see, when people will be poor, I'm talking as a layman, you need food to eat now. You need wealth now in the poorest of the poor segments. So if they continue to remain poor at this moment, who provides that support? That's where the concept of a welfare state comes in, where the government pitches in.
So what I'm saying is, the poor are going to come out of poverty line. That has happened over the last 2 decades at enormous speed. But the redistribution of wealth is not going to do.
Okay.
Growing of wealth is the only way to bring more people out of poverty, more people from middle class to higher middle class, and so on and so forth.
No, that's only when money circulates. But what if money gathers in the coffers of a few who are rich? Let me quickly broad-base this discussion, get in more people. Mr. Singh is also with us. Mr. Singh, before I come to you, maybe what we can do is just queue up this presentation by my colleague Meher on massive job losses during the pandemic, where women have been hit the hardest and the informal sector is still struggling. Now, this is a key area of concern, a major area of concern. We are going to queue up that presentation in just a short moment. In the meanwhile, pictures perhaps of the finance minister, of the finance minister leaving her residence to go to the Ministry of Finance. In just a short moment, she'll hold a small meeting with representatives of her ministry. And once she does that, she'll come out and head straight to Parliament. That budget speech is going to be at 11 a.m. available digitally to all of us once the speech is completed. So this is an important day. Remember, I think for any finance minister, Professor Apurva, this is an extremely challenging time. It's far more challenging than any other moment that I can think of, because you're recovering from a pandemic. You have to take care of the economy, and you have to present the budget which will fix the economy.
Absolutely, it's very difficult, and I think this is like a budget that everybody is looking at after like 1991 sort of a situation, because we are fiscally at a tight situation, so much to do for industry, for the common man.
Is that the level of reforms we need? 1991?
I mean, we need reforms I think in banking we need a great amount of reforms. Some of them could be very bold. Farm laws are already out there. We need reforms on multiple industries. And so I I think and I hope that this budget kickstarts that process again.
Okay. Mr. Singh, I would like you to come in here and then maybe Mr. Nambiar. See, Professor Apurva mentioned about reforms and how this is perhaps potentially a post-1991 or a 1991 budget sort of a situation for us. At what cost? And will reforms be acceptable? Or should we not care for acceptability and just go ahead with reforms because we are in a crisis-like situation?
Okay, let me start by saying that while I agree with all the other speakers that infrastructure is a key for long-term growth and reforms as well and creation of jobs, but at the same time we need to ensure that we have an immediate survivor and money reaches the hands of the poorest of the poor. See, the Sustainable Development Goals or the levels of poverty that India had achieved, they've all really gone back by a few years. We've really stepped back. There are more than 5 crore people who've been thrown into poverty just because of the pandemic, and that number is only increasing because of the out-of-pocket expenses and lack of insurance, etc., and healthcare. So perhaps we will need to do a very tight walking right now to try and look at infrastructure and also look at getting money to the poor. So maybe schemes like Narega, which really gets money to the hands of the poor, but at the same time, their infrastructure is created. Maybe you could have an urban scheme as well, similar to Narega. So you've really got the best of both. You've got it's not just a direct benefit transfer that's going into the hands of these people, but there is some kind of an income support and infrastructure also being created in that process. That is very important. When we talk about jobs, remember one thing, it's not just unemployment, it's also underemployment. Majority of the people, we've got a workforce of 55 to 60 crore people in India, and you only got about 26% of those are women. So a lot of them are underemployed as well. We've got over 90% of our workforce is really in the informal sector. That's been severely hit. So we need to look at balancing these two things, and I don't think it's a year of trying to look at trying to save money really at the end of the day. Even if we will hit a higher fiscal deficit this year, and so be it. But then that is the only way for us to really go forward. We need to try and get in resources. We've spoken about, trying to have a disinvestment. We've spoken about tax collections being improved. We've spoken about maybe even looking at, an asset restructuring bank for the government to be able to monetize some of its debts and assets, etc. All these steps have to be taken. So yes, it is a very, very landmark budget. We need to do a trade-off of a Pujara and a Panth, where we've actually saved lives, we've saved the match, and now we need to go in for growth, because that's the only way for us to really get out of this situation that we are in right now.
Analogy. The finance minister has to do a Pujara and a Panth together.
Absolutely, that's the only way. We cannot step back now. We've done the Pujara, now the Panth.
PKD Nambiar. Let's quickly have a political discussion as well. Shama Mohammed, good morning. Many of the analysts over here feel that this is a 1991-like moment when Dr. Manmohan Singh rose to present the budget and built the modern Indian economy the way it is right now, laid the foundation stone for that economy. This is that sort of a moment for Nirmala Sitharaman. What are your inputs?
I don't agree on that. This government was in power for the last. Let's not forget that before COVID came, what was our GDP? 3.2. Our GDP was down the last 8 quarters before it reached 3.2. So what happened after COVID? The way they dealt with it. Now, there was a 20 lakh crore package. Was there any direct, like you mentioned, no food on people's plate? Was there any direct transfer of money to the poorest of poor? No. All of the world, they did it. Was there any cash transfers to the MSMEs? No. It was just credit is what they gave. I mean, how do you expect? Look at hospitality sectors. And I speak drivers when I come to Delhi. Those who had 5 cars now have 1. They said, "Ma'am, kaam hi nahi hai." And the government, they saying, "Kuch mila nahi sarkar se." So who is supposed to do that? That's the job. Now, of course, we have tax exemptions for the corporates. They have been given credit. But what has been given to the poor? You know, that, well, if you look at it, I am also not an expert, but as a lead person, you can see that from 2004 to 2015, we lifted 145 million out of poverty. And right now, it's gone down again. And you have to understand one important thing. During COVID, the last 1 year, 120 million people have applied for Manrega. That is an increase of 50% from 2019 to 20. And in December, Jan itself, 35 million people applying for Manrega. What does it show is that there is no V-shaped recovery or anything. Rural growth completely shut down. And on top of that, we have the farmer crisis, the farm laws, black laws. So it's really gone down. Now, where is the money? We have to increase demand. We have to increase consumption. We need also, like you said, there should be investment from the public sector, and we should not look at the fiscal deficit at this point of time. The gentleman who spoke before spoke the right thing. Private investment is going to be difficult because inflation is at around 11%. So the interest rates by the RBI are going to be tightened. So there's not going to be much of private investment. Also, we've gone into Atmanirbhar Bharat. Exports have gone down. You know, everybody has to use what is here. And then when your exports go down, imports also, I mean, if you tighten these things, definitely imports are also going to go down. So where are we going to get these private investments? Now the investment has to be from the government. Like you said, infrastructure to give jobs. 12.2 crore jobs.
Okay,
I mean,
one moment. Shama, you mentioned a lot of points. Just for the ease of getting replies to each of them, Mr. PKD Nambiar, would you like to respond? She's mentioned in great detail, and Shama has a very, very sound understanding of the economy. She's basically, on her part, she says that this is more than the failing because of the circumstances. It has to do with the failing of the government, right? Mr. Nambiar, your response. And also, would like to tell our viewers that the Finance Minister has now reached the Ministry of Finance. In just a short moment, we'll be expecting her to come out with all the top bosses of the Finance Ministry and head straight to the Parliament. So those are pictures that came in just a short while ago of the Finance Minister reaching the Finance Ministry. And then she will eventually come out. Many people are saying that this is, as Professor Apurva right here said, that this is almost like a 1991 sort of a moment for the Finance Minister. Huge burden of expectations, a huge and a very tall ask, perhaps matching 1991. I mean, and for those who are not aware, that was one scary moment for the Indian economy where we had to pledge gold and all sorts of things were happening, and luckily it hasn't come to that now, but we're very close to that situation because of the pandemic. Not to pledge gold, but maybe to revive the economy.